The story begins on an ordinary morning at a busy airport. Travelers stand in looping lines, balancing carry-ons and coffee cups, moving in small steps toward the gate. There is the familiar choreography of boarding, a polite announcement, a shuffle of groups, and the quiet race for overhead bin space. Amid the tide of passengers, one man stands out precisely because he does not stand out. He wears simple, clean clothes, carries a compact bag, and keeps his eyes on the floor tiles as he advances with steady patience. No entourage, no badge, no one clearing a path. If you were watching, you might not notice him at all. When his group is called, he scans his boarding pass without a word. The scanner blips, the agent nods, and he walks the jet bridge with a careful pace, as if trying not to disturb anyone's morning. Inside the aircraft, the cabin air feels cool and dry, humming with low conversation. He pauses only long enough to stow his small bag in a half-empty bin a few rows ahead of his seat. He does not rearrange anyone else's luggage or test boundaries. He simply uses the space he sees and moves on. He slides into his window seat, buckles his belt, and folds his hands. There is nothing theatrical, nothing meant to signal that he carries any special responsibility. The aisle remains crowded while other passengers file past. Someone gently bumps his shoulder with a backpack and offers a hushed apology. He smiles and says, "No problem," in a tone that feels practiced, like someone who has spent years learning how to keep a day peaceful. The announcements continue. Safety checks, reminders about devices, a request to clear the aisle. The man stays still, looking out at the rain spattering the oval window. It is the picture of a routine flight poised to lift from an unremarkable gate to an unremarkable destination. A flight attendant approaches, making the final sweep before pushback. Her steps are quick, her checklist long. In tight spaces at 35,000 feet, seconds matter. She stops at the row, glances up at the overhead bin ahead, and then back to the passenger's seat number. Her voice is professional but brisk as she asks, "Sir, did you place your bag in that bin?" The man nods. "Please move it to the bin directly above your row," she says, tapping her pen against the headrest. "We need to keep the space organized for boarding." The words land with the blunt speed of someone who has said the same sentence 100 times before. The passenger unbuckles without complaint. He stands, keeps his shoulders close to his seat, and steps into the flow of the aisle only when there is a gap. He retrieves the bag and relocates it to the bin above. His motions are careful, precise, and respectful of the people around him. The attendant watches, then offers a short, "Thank you." If there is an edge to her tone, it comes from the strain of the job, not from any personal grudge. The man nods again, sits down, and fastens the belt with the quiet click that signals the end of a small task. Nearby passengers exchange brief glances. The interaction was ordinary, yet there is a trace of something clipped in the air. No one speaks up. Why would they? The cabin is full of private stories, and everyone is focused on their own. Still, a few people notice the contrast between the man's calm courtesy and the attendant's terse rhythm. It is not a scene, not even close, just one of those moments that skims the surface of a flight and leaves a tiny ripple. The plane pushes back. Safety demonstrations, engine whine, a runway roll that presses everyone gently into their seats. The aircraft climbs and settles into a high, even cruise. The cabin relaxes. Laptops open, books appear, headphones slide into place. The man by the window sips water he brought from the terminal and looks across clouds that resemble a pale, moving continent. He is not restless. He does not flag down the crew or launch into conversation. He returns to stillness with the ease of someone who prefers quiet to attention. When the beverage cart reaches the row, the same attendant stops with a practiced smile. "Drink?" she asks, tone more neutral now. The man replies, "Water, please." She sets a cup on his tray without lingering eye contact. It is efficient and impersonal, the way so many service exchanges are when the clock is running. The cup trembles lightly as the aircraft rides a minor pocket of air. "Thank you," he says. "You're welcome," she replies, already moving to the next passenger with the choreography of muscle memory. A little later, no one can pinpoint exactly when, the texture of the narrative shifts. Another crew member passes through with a manifest in hand. She glances down at the names, then around the cabin in that familiar sweep. She stops for a fraction of a second near the row with the quiet passenger. Her expression changes by a shade. Nothing dramatic, more like a subtle recalibration. She steps back, checks the list again, and leans toward a colleague in the galley for a brief, hushed exchange. Nothing about it is theatrical. It could be about seating, special meals, or any number of routine details. Still, the story hinges on this moment of recognition. As the retelling goes, either the manifest or a neighbor's whisper confirms what no one had announced. The soft-spoken passenger is reported to be Ibrahim Traoré, known internationally as the President of Burkina Faso. If true, it means the man who moved his bag without a sigh and accepted a curt tone without returning it carries the weight of head of state responsibilities. He did not arrive with an escort. He did not request a broadcast. He did not stand up to explain himself. He simply boarded like anyone else and chose quiet over display. What follows is not a dramatic reversal, but a gentle shift in atmosphere. The next time the attendant passes the row, her voice is warmer. "How's everything, sir?" she asks. The passenger looks up from the window and says, "Everything is fine, thank you." There is a small pause, just long enough to acknowledge that the day could have taken another shape. The attendant nods. "If you need anything, please let us know." She moves on, and the aisle fills again with the ordinary sounds of a flight in motion. The man does not use the moment to make a point. He does not ask for first-class service in an economy seat, nor does he demand that earlier words be corrected. Instead, he returns his attention to the view outside, where the cloud cover breaks to reveal a river looping through green land. He appears content to let the incident remain what it was. A short interaction between two people doing their best in a tight space under time pressure. The calm he carried onto the aircraft remains with him now, as steady and quiet as the engine hum. Midway through the flight, turbulence nudges cups and rattles the cart in a way that recruits everyone's patience. The seatbelt sign chimes. The crew suspends service with a quick announcement. The cabin tightens, not in fear, but in that shared awareness of physics and altitude that makes strangers momentarily neighbors. The man by the window adjusts his posture, folds his hands, and waits like everyone else for the air to smooth. The attendants keep moving in their safety roles, checking belts, tidying loose items, offering quick reassurances. It is a reminder that this job is about more than snacks and smiles. It is about order and attention in a place where order and attention keep people safe. When the ride steadies and the sign clicks off, work resumes. The attendant returns to the row with a bottle of water and an unspoken intention to make things right. She sets the bottle on the tray. "For you," she says, quieter now. "Thank you," he replies, meeting her eyes with a look that carries more grace than any speech could. The apology, if that's what this is, does not require elaborate phrasing. It lives in tone, in the decision to slow down for 10 seconds, in a job that rarely lets you slow down at all. People nearby cannot help but feel the subtle recalibration. It is not about celebrity. No one is asking for autographs or selfies. It is about a recognition that someone in this aisle holds a responsibility larger than his clothing or luggage suggests. More importantly, the recognition arrives alongside an observation. Power, when it is at peace with itself, often chooses restraint. You do not have to raise your voice to demonstrate who you are. Sometimes you demonstrate it by not needing to. Hours pass the way they often do at altitude, both slow and strangely quick. The sun finds a gap between clouds and pours a cool light into the cabin. The aircraft begins its gradual descent. Seatbacks click upright. Laptop lids close. The complicated geometry of overhead bins reawakens in people's minds as they plan how to exit efficiently. The attendant stops at the row one last time. She offers the routine final check. Seatbelt fastened. Tray up? Thank you. Her voice is calm, and there is, perhaps, a fraction more care in those two words. Thank you than there was at the beginning. Touchdown brings the gentle thump everyone expects, followed by a roll that fades to a taxi and then a stop. The chime sounds, seatbelts unclip, and the cabin becomes an improvised maze of angles and waiting. The man remains seated for a moment, allowing the aisle to clear. When he does stand, he reaches for his bag with the same unhurried motion he used hours earlier. The attendant steps closer, unsure whether to say something more. In a brief pocket of quiet amid the overhead clatter, she speaks. "Sir," she says, "if I came across as rushed earlier, I apologize." The man nods once, not dismissing the words, not making them heavier than they need to be. "Thank you for your work," he says. "Safe day to you." There is no announcement. No one holds the door or calls for a photo. The man exits with the flow, a single traveler among many. On the jet bridge, the air feels warmer, touched by the sun that has moved across the sky during the flight. He pauses to let a family with children pass ahead. Then he continues toward the terminal, where hundreds of private itineraries bend and cross in silence. His path disappears into that crowd as easily as it appeared hours ago. The reason people share this story, again as an unverified anecdote, is not to judge individuals or to turn a workday into a spectacle. It circulates because of the contrast at its heart. A person with substantial public responsibility chooses to travel without fanfare. A professional under pressure speaks a little too quickly, and both of them, in the end, meet in a simple exchange of courtesy. It is a small story, lived in seconds, yet the impression it leaves is larger than the moment that produced it. There is also a lesson people repeat when they pass this account along. We rarely know who sits around us. In an airplane, a waiting room, a coffee shop, a line that moves slower than we hoped. We rarely know what burdens others carry, whether those burdens are private or public. If we default to respect, we do not risk much. At most, we risk giving someone more dignity than their day has recently afforded them. The return on that habit is steadier rooms, calmer flights, and fewer small frictions turned into large regrets. None of this erases the reality that frontline roles are demanding. The pace is fast, the space is narrow, and the stakes, especially in aviation, are not trivial. A brisk tone can be an artifact of safety and schedule, not malice. The anecdote does not require a villain to make its point. Instead, it invites both sides of a brief exchange to consider what they bring to it. Patience is as contagious as impatience, and calm can be an anchor in a cabin that is always in motion. If you choose to tell this story to your audience, you can let it stand on its small feet. No need for grand declarations. No need to stretch beyond what the moment holds. A man boarded a plane, carried himself with quiet composure, and accepted a short correction without defensiveness. Later, someone recognized his public role. The atmosphere adjusted, not because he demanded it, but because recognition tends to change the lens through which we view the same behavior. The most interesting detail is that his behavior did not change at all. Think, too, about how easily the moment could have gone another way. A sharp reply from the passenger might have produced a sharper one in return. A public correction, "Do you know who I am?" could have turned a routine flight into an uncomfortable lesson of a different kind. Instead, the choice to remain measured kept the cabin human. That choice belongs to any of us, no matter where we sit or what our title says. As the final passengers leave and the crew begins their turnaround, the aircraft resets for its next trip. The seatbelts will be stacked, the trash removed, the bins checked, the manifest updated, the announcements repeated. Somewhere down the line, another passenger will slide into a window seat and look out at a tarmac dotted with vehicles and workers in reflective vests. The cycle will continue, a testament to the everyday machinery of travel. But one memory from this flight, the one at the center of this story, will remain with a few people who watched it happen or heard about it later. Calm is not the absence of pressure. It is the decision to stay centered despite it. So the anecdote closes where it began, with a simple scene. A man stepping onto a plane like anyone else, a crew managing a complicated job, and a moment of tone that could have lingered badly but didn't. The only commentary it seems to ask for is modest. Choose courtesy first. There is no penalty for being kinder than necessary. And if recognition arrives later, if someone turns out to be carrying more authority than you guessed, that choice will look even wiser in hindsight. If recognition never arrives, it will still have been the right choice. We end where the voiceover can gracefully stop, with a last glance through the oval window as ground crews prep for another departure, and with a thought to carry into the rest of the day. Titles change. Schedules change. Even flight paths change. What does not need to change is the baseline we offer one another in the tight spaces we share. A steady tone, a little patience, and the willingness to let a small moment remain small. That is the whole story as it is told online, unverified, ordinary, and in its quiet way, worth remembering.